Welcome to the webinar, The Future of Retail, Boosting Customer Loyalty in the Digital World. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be your moderator for today. We're very excited to have 3 experts here today to share their insights on why companies need to focus on building loyalty in an era where the digital customer experience can make or break a brand or retailer. Before I introduce them, however, I have a few simple housekeeping matters to attend to. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find some application widgets for your use. These widgets are all resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to optimize your desktop space. The slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button in the top right-hand corner of your presentation window. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget. We will try to answer your questions during the webcast, but if we run out of time, we can answer them via email. Please know we do capture all questions, and we want to make sure you receive an answer. So without further delay on our panel, we have Tuan Nguyen, Managing Director and Global Head of Retail Services at Media Market Saturn Deutschland. Tuan has over 15 years of experience in managing customer service organizations with a focus on delivering an excellent customer experience. He has contributed to the growth of organizations such as Amazon, Microsoft, and GM by creating world-class customer experience strategies. Second, we have Jitender Mohan, EVP of Customer Experience Services at WNS Global. WNS is a leading business process management, BPM, company. They combine deep industry knowledge with technology and analytics expertise to co-create innovative, digital-led transformational solutions with clients across 10 industries. And our third panelist is Philippe Mercier, Vice President of Analytics Sales Asia Pacific at NICE. Philippe has over 25 years of experience building and managing sales teams in direct and channel sales, as well as held senior positions in marketing, public relations, and business development. I thank you all for joining us today in what I'm sure will be a very interesting discussion. So just to set the stage a bit for our audience, Philippe, we know retailers have been struggling with customer loyalty in the past 2 years. Can you tell us how you see customer loyalty shaping up in the new COVID retail environment?
Yes, thank you, Megan, and thank you for having me today. I would say that there is a good news and a bad news. And I think that from a retailer standpoint, the bad news is that obviously it's going to get tougher to meet customer expectation. Yes, we have a new rise of customer expectation that translates into several things. Of course, the first one that was an acceleration of something that was already happening. It's a digital acceleration. So you have a lot of facts saying that since the pandemic started, we saw a rise of the use of digital adoption. It has increased from 81% to almost 95% since the beginning of the pandemic. Also, it's interesting to remember that there is another fact saying that today we know that when customers are trying to attempt or to solve the questions, 81% of them are trying to do that using self-service capabilities, whether it's an app, your website, whatever you have, versus, I don't know, reaching out to a live agent. So that's one. There is obviously another one around hyper-personalization. We know it's becoming more and more critical for retailers to deliver this. And also in this new expectation, you have users that are assuming that whenever they're going to be using multiple channels, it's going to be frictionless. So that's kind of the bad news. And quite frankly, this set of expectations translates sometimes in customer experience being very tough to deliver. The good news is that at the same time, you have a lot of new, I would say, capabilities and technology made available to retailers to match those new expectations. Now you can use AI to predict what's going to be happening. So you have the rise of predictive models. You have today available some very compelling multi-channel platform that can deliver a true omni-channel experience on the cloud. you are able to start delivering real-time capabilities to your agent, whether they are in stores or offline. You can start streamlining many processes thanks to a new age of automation. You have some new generation of bots. We'll come back to this, I'm sure, that can start really delivering some powerful self-service capabilities. So I would say that's kind of the new expectation, but also the new capabilities that retailers have now to deal with when it comes to delivering new customer loyalty.
Great. Thank you, Philippe. Jitender, how has customer loyalty been shaping up in your view? And what are some of the most recent tactics to improve customer loyalty that you've seen?
Yeah, no, like I think Philippe said, it's a very interesting time. It's good and bad both. See, first of all, it's very important to understand that the crisis has irrevocably shifted the retail consumer mindset with far and wide consequences for customer loyalty. So there are many reports, many published papers which are very clearly citing that in last 1.5 years of crisis, 35 to 40% of the customers and consumers have tried new brand, and 77 to 80% of the customers have really experienced new shopping behaviors or shown new shopping behaviors, including using new channels in stores and brands. Now that really is good, but it is a big challenge to drive your loyalty program. Now what it means for retail brands is to go, and I will divide this into 5 key points. First point, which is extremely important, is that there is a big shift happening from points-only loyalty programs to paid loyalty programs. And one of the big examples, and we are all users of that, is Amazon Prime membership. And there are many examples that how paid loyalty programs are actually taking over points-only loyalty programs. Now, it is needless to say that paid loyalty programs will have to really outweigh their benefits because somebody has to pay for it. But most important thing to understand in a paid loyalty program is that it's easy to get customers onboarded by showing a lot of initial benefits, but how do you retain customer is dependent on the whole experiential value adds you give for particular program. Now, when I say experiential perks, these are value-added services, exclusive privileges, preferential treatments, and there are many examples. So that is one big thing brands have to really focus on, that how do you convert from a points-only loyalty program to a paid loyalty program and bring a lot of value-added services to improve experiential perks. The other thing is new channels of engagement. Now that's very interesting because engagement was always important, but it is materially changed. Today, when I get into experiential perks and value-added services, consumers want to understand that how are they becoming meaningful in a brand's decision-making process. Now, the big example, recent one, and very interesting example was Target launching Circle program. Now, using Circle program, Target is bringing its loyalty customers to become and participate in deciding where the social cause decision has to be. Where should I put my NGO initiative into? Which NGO should I participate? Which direction should I fund my social cause initiative into? Now, that is really meaningful engagement. It's a great example of engaging with your loyal customer base and making them feel part of your brand. The other thing which is extremely important, the third one, is analytics-driven loyalty. Now, again, many published data very clearly suggests that 63% of retailers expect to spend more on business intelligence, analytics, and artificial intelligence. And channel of preference has to be, using an app, which is your reward-based app program. Fourth is gamification trend. Now, all the brands, and there are again enough examples, whether it is NBC, Taco Bell, Nike, Victoria, Starbucks, you see all of them are moving towards a direction where they're using gamification to engage with their customer and improve their loyalty and engagement programs. And last, extremely important one is push notification is good to have, but push notification will only work if it is precise, which means you have to use your geolocation, geofencing technique to ensure that you are pushing really, really relevant, precise notification to your customers. And that will further drive your engagement with your customers and loyalty. That is how I feel are big trends which are shifting towards loyalty programs. I'll hand over back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Tuan, can you expand on how you see customer loyalty shaping up in the new normal for retailers?
Yes, I would emphasize a little bit more on one topic that Jitendra mentioned. This is regards to the services that retailers need to offer to their customers. I think the pandemic obviously slowed down the store business quite heavily because most of the stores were even closed. However, we can see that since the pandemic is slowing down, that store business are picking up again. While we are in the pandemic, we already can see that the bandwidth customers can choose from, so the options to buy something online, grow immense. Yeah? So a customer has a lot of options at the moment to buy something. So if you want to boost your customer loyalty, I think the main important fact here is to ensure that you offer not only the products, but a lot of services around the products. And just to mention some, delivery and installation services, expanded warranty, tech support after you sold something. So you need to have this kind of services in place to ensure that the customers are coming back again. They actually are not coming back because they only have a great purchasing experience with you, so a good customer journey. They're also coming back because everything after the buying process is working as well for them. And I think this is a very important thing to differentiate yourself compared to your competitors by offering additional service to the customers. Some of them are free, they are just part of the buying process, and some of them you really can get additional revenue streams for those. But customers are just expecting it. And I think it's important to understand, okay, what are you selling and what kind of services you can offer to ensure that the customers are coming back and being loyal to your brand. And this is the biggest differentiator that we were able to see during the pandemic to compete with our competitors, actually, adding additional services where we're focusing on. Like I said, the product that you are selling is mainly driven by the price, especially in the e-commerce platforms. So customers have the possibility to compare price very quick, very fast nowadays, can gather very quick and very fast all the information they need to know before they purchase something. But the services are the ones that differentiate yourself from your competitors. So this is a very important part to boost customer loyalty.
Great. Thank you, Tuan. With the rise of e-commerce and a shift towards a connected retail experience, what are the key customer experience imperatives retailers should be thinking about? Jitendra, what would you say?
See, again, as the retail industry is undergoing a tectonic shift with retailers keen on delivering anytime, anywhere, contextual experience to consumers, and to maximize customers' lifetime value for their engagement with the brand. Again, there are some critical factors which have to be dealt with very, very efficiently and very fast. One is your seamless and consistent experience, and we'll keep hearing this in multiple contexts during this discussion, because today it's very easy to say that we have a very seamless and consistent experience in our journey when we deal with customers. But if you speak to all the retail brands in general, you will see that at least 10 to 15% of decision makers in the retail space will really bring out data silos as their biggest challenge. And when I say data silos, means that when a customer approaches them through multiple channels, there is a breakdown in that. It's very, and that's the biggest challenge industry is facing. So that has to be resolved so that you really make a seamless and consistent experience. That is point number one. Point number two is creating a truly frictionless experience. And by that I mean is that when you're dealing with high value, loyal customers, you really have to make it frictionless experience and make it contextual, proactive, and less reactive. There's another important thing which is very interesting, because most of us fall into that trap, is that 80% of companies' future revenue typically comes from 20% of existing clients. And if that is true, then ideally our investment should more happen towards retaining the customer. But if you really see the numbers, 44% of the companies focus more on their efforts on acquisition, as against only 18% which focus on retention. Now that trend has to change. If the hypothesis is true that 80% of the company's future revenue is going to come from 20% of existing client, and then you have to further improve the CLV of the consumer. So which means your effort towards retention of the customers, effort towards making their engagement more meaningful has to really, really multifold increase. That is point number 2. Point number 3 is reinventing the experience, because post-pandemic, the retail experience will require completely different way of looking at the way retail industry has been meeting the customers, because when customers come back to your retail shop, they will really expect a very, very, I would say, high-end customer experience in the retail shop, because that's how you want to bring them back to multiple experiences through multiple channels, including the retail experience, which is physical touch. Then there is a dynamic personalization point, which has been discussed earlier in the in one of the points we mentioned. While personalization is a hygiene factor, because customers take it for granted, but if a retailer or a particular customer journey makes it wrong, customers may depart from a competitor, because today loyalty is very challenging. Like I said, 70% of the customers in last 1.5 years have actually experienced very, very different brands, very, very different customer behaviors, and even buying behaviors. Which means, while personalization is a hygiene factor, but to do it right is extremely important, because doing it wrong can cause you losing a customer. Now, again, many examples where recently a European grocery retail began to shift to research based on retailers' macro segmentation, and then built a new transaction engine to really give customized, personalized, geofencing based personalized offer. And those are very, very critical, I would say, 5 points which are really important to ensure that connect and retail industry and connect with the customers is extremely critically seen. Thanks for that.
Excellent, thank you. Tuan, what would you say to that?
I also can agree to what Jiten just mentioned. I think the customer journey needs to have a new way of understanding, especially in the stores. Yeah, if we're talking about retailers having really a big wide network of stores, I think selling a product is not about the product itself anymore. It's about the emotions and the experience around this. So providing the right atmosphere to the customer while he's trying to purchase something, providing him with the right information, having the right setup in a store or even online for the customers to experience much, much more than only the product, but usually the entire experience and the entire atmosphere around buying a product. I'll give you an example of the gaming industry. Gaming, if it's console or PCs, is picking up, especially in the pandemic. People are not able to go out, so a lot of people staying home and doing a lot of gaming. So gaming industry is one of the biggest winner during the pandemic. Gamers need a certain, let's say, atmosphere, need a certain emotional touch to the product before they buy something. They are not comparing only, okay, if this is better or more expensive compared to another. They really want to have an experience. They want the right support. They want the right person on the other side talking to him. Yeah? So somebody who is also a gamer, actually. So meaning, from that point of view, you need to not only sell a product, you need to sell the emotion around the product. And to create this, a lot of things need to happen in the customer journey. It's already starting, if we're talking about stores again, how the customer enters the store. Yeah? If it's easy for him to find the products, how the store is set up, what kind of experience he has from the first touch point to the end when he buy the product or initiate a purchase on the e-commerce platform. So I think this is one thing that all retailers really need to look at. And we are not only selling products, we are selling services and we're selling emotions around those products. And this is something that is very important nowadays to differentiate yourself, again, compared to your competitors. Because there are so many platforms out there, so many companies or retailers out there. You need to sell experience, you need to sell atmosphere, you need to sell loyalty. And that's something that many companies are missing at the moment. And I think the focus in the customer journey needs to shift to this area in specific. So it's not only about the price and how good the product is, it's all around the product that is making the decision for a customer much easier as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Tuan. Philippe, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, obviously, I fully agree with what Tuan and Yatender said, especially around the experience and the emotion. Maybe I'd like to look at that more from a customer service standpoint. This is what we are focusing on at NICE. And we know that the experience is highly driven about, all those customer service that you can deliver. So, the question is, how can you deliver a good experience? And I think that this is, we have retailers coming to us almost every day with this question at NICE. And what is interesting is to realize that very few of them are actually able to tell you what is driving a good experience or a bad experience. And what I mean driving, meaning that from their customers themselves. And I think that's what I'm talking about here, is the fact that it's good to make assumption, and everything which has been said, it makes tons of sense. However, in the first place, one of the big imperative for a retailer is to start listening to the customer. And there is a tons of information right now which is not leveraged, which is basically all the interactions that retailers do have with their customer. And there are many touch points. And whether it's using, text interactions, voice interactions, physical interactions, all those interactions are basically a gold mine of understanding what is driving for their customer a good or a bad experience, positive or negative. So basically, and so I guess what I'm talking about here is I'm touching on the value of analytics and basically being able to tap into this, we call that the dark data, because quite frankly, today only less than, 1 retailer out of 5 are tapping into this information. So that being said, so when you start understanding what is driving a good experience or bad experience, and we had retailer coming to us, in APAC, some were kind of making the wrong assumptions, not realizing that, okay, they were suspecting that they had a delivery issue, but they were unable to understand which specific customer segment was really vocal about that and what kind of specific issues behind the delivery was at stake, and not realizing that it was actually a combination of several processes and a specific subcontractor that was really raising a lot of issues. So when you start having this ability to deep dive into this information, you can start understanding what is driving interactions. And obviously, another one we know that is important is basically the experience you have while you are in the conversation you have with your company. I mean, as I said, 80% of the customer, when they are reaching out, it's usually because there is a question, there is an issue. So that's going to be driving their experience. And we know that a bad experience, I think that there was a fact which was, amazing, is that 63% of consumer are acknowledging the fact that after a bad experience, they could drop a brand that they used to love. So it's really, showing the importance of experience. So that being said, so back to the imperative, I think that first, how do you want to manage what you don't know? So start tapping into understanding what your customers are telling you and understanding what is driving a good experience. Now, I think that this is where, Jitender was, touching on the need to have frictionless, omni-channel, very true. But I'd like to start also touching on the very leading edge kind of new capabilities made available for retailer. Well, the first one is that we get to a point right now where we can leverage all those interactions and start analyzing what is the right behavior that as an agent, whether in store or, talking to or texting with your customer, what kind of behavior can drive satisfaction or can drive a good experience? And that's going to be including your ability to have empathy, your ability to do, to own issues or to do right questionings. So being able to identify those specific behavior and applying, in this case, you can apply AI to start mapping whether you are acting and delivering those behavior that you are looking for, And if not, well, you can act on this. So I think that we get to a point where right now, yes, obviously you need to have this omni-channel frictionless platform, but should you have the analytics and how to start translating this into having the right behavior toward your agent, this is where you make a big difference. The last thing I want to say is that, let's realize that what is ahead of us in the 5 coming years, is the rise of what I would call the smart virtual agent. Okay, when it comes to delivering some interesting experience, and we'll come back to this as we talk about, the workforce. But yes, right now, as I said, most consumers are trying to, when engaging with the retailer, to be self-sufficient. They are looking for self-service. So the rise of this new virtual agent that can deliver the right information, the right way, with the right behavior, using the right conversation, is becoming critical. And we get to this with a combination of what used to be the chatbot with an AI and knowledge management. So by combining this, and you put all the knowledge you have of your consumer and all your past interactions, yes, we are in a position now to deliver this. And this is something that, according to me, will make a big difference in the coming years in the ability for retailers to start delivering this kind of frictionless and self-service oriented experience for consumer.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Philippe. So moving into our next discussion point, Jitender, can you explain how the customer service associate can support the needs of the next-gen savvy consumer?
Yeah, so I think it's one extremely important question, and I think Philippe just touched upon it in terms of how AI and machine learning and all those things will start playing an important and critical role in the way this whole seamless and frictionless journey is going to be recrafted for our customers. Now, before I get into a little more details, think of a high-level pyramid in your mind and think of the topmost level as strategic, second level as analytical, and third as execution. Now, when I say strategic, what does that mean actually in our context? It actually means it's a human-inspired design to drive competitive difference. At analytics level, which is the second level, which I mentioned in the pyramid, it is human-assisted to drive insights. And third is execution. Now, if you do all these three right, starting from human-inspired design to drive competitive intelligence, moving into human-assisted to drive insights, and third is execution basis both of the above, I think you will have a real power of people and technology to make work more effective, efficient, and meaningful. Now, when you go deep into further of this picture in your mind, you will see that all it means is, as the industry evolves and customer preference shifts, it is imperative for the retailers to ensure that the element of human touch and empathy is across everything they do. While the technology will do what it has to do, whether it is speech analytics, text analytics, CRMs, which are absolutely connected to each other, you have no data silos. Let's assume technology does what it has to do. It only means the next step is going to be handed over to a human touch, which is the last leg of the, let's say, interaction with the customer, where the customer really wants to be feel seen, heard, and engaged. And that's where your element of human touch and empathy comes in. And at WNS, it's very interesting, while this whole discussion has become extremely important because of crisis and pandemic, almost 2.5, 3 years back, we started talking about importance of domain and technology and a digital associate. And by digital associated, we actually meant this only, which is human-assisted model, which is powered by AI and technology to deliver a seamless customer experience. Now, second important point is retailers will need a more adaptive workforce, which is digital, data affluent, and diverse, which means somebody who is really, really affluent with multiple channels, multiple machines giving you next best action. How do you really decide basis that insight which is coming to you and thrown at you, and you decide on that moment when you're talking to the customer through irrespective of any channel in the best possible way using all the aids given to you. Third, it's going to be domain experts. Now, when you actually peel the onion, you have all the technology to your, let's say, to your, at your disposal. You have all the analytics at your disposal, but you still need extremely high level of domain knowledge to deliver a really, really contextualized experience. And that's where the domain expertise comes, handy to really make a material difference between one brand to another, or different brand. And there's another interesting one, which is, I think there is a lot of talks happening on that. Everybody is saying we're going to invest in technology, we're going to invest in AI. 70% plus companies are doing that and wanting to do that. But go to level 2, and if the question is asked, what percentage of companies are really investing in reskilling programs of their agent? If all the things which I spoke about workforce is true, then in part it's extremely critical to upskill and reskill your workforce. And that percentage is single percentage today. It's only 4%. So that's another important thing, that reskilling of front office domain expert is extremely important. And the last is technology-led training. I think Tuan spoke about it, how important it is to use gamified technology to not just improve experience of the customer, but you have to use the technology to improve training also, which is about your, frontline agents and frontline workforce. And there are a lot of good examples. If you look at Walmart today, I mean, they are using all their, gamified experience for training their retail academy and, all the retail front-end agents. So again, all these are critical points which are extremely important to improve your human touch and empathy, which will lead to trust in your customers, which will lead to further loyalty as you build your brands. Thanks.
Thank you. Philippe, anything that you would add to what Jitendra just said?
Yeah, I think that's what I would emphasize is the fact that we foresee at NICE the fact that, yes, with the rise of AI, of automation, those smart bots, those self-service capabilities, you're going to have, as Jitendra pointed out, the fact that most of your agents will end up dealing with the most complex situation, most complex questions. And obviously, if you think from an agent standpoint, let's not forget that, all those retailers relying on agents are relying on a population as a profession, which is facing almost the highest turnover across all industry. The average churn for agents is 40%. So basically, the challenge you have is that, okay, your agent is supposed to be dealing with the most complex situation. At the same time, you have a churn rate which is 40%. The learning curve is almost 12 months. And the only way to bridge this is to be able to start pushing to this agent the right information, the knowledge that you've been able to capitalize on for the many years. And I think that Jitendra was touching on that, but we look at that as, he was talking about this, domain expertise and knowledge. This is indeed something that, according to us, will make a tremendous difference. And it's one perspective, but I was referring to this concept of smart virtual agent, but a side approach of that is how do you basically push to your but also your resources on the field, how do you push them all the knowledge and smart that you've been able, and insight you've been able to gain as a company, to make it handy and relevant for your agent at the time of the interaction. So that's a big challenge, but this is what's going to make the difference, and the difference between some successful retailer and the other.
Excellent. Thank you, Philippe. Tuan, anything that you would add?
I can only fully agree with Jitendra and Philippe in saying that technology changed the way you actually even start selecting your workforce. So pushing information to them with the current technology that we have is actually not so difficult anymore. So providing, let's say, product deep knowledge is not so difficult. However, having people transporting the right emotions when you have a talk to a customer and to close down the deal. I think this is what we need to look at. So this is changing dramatically in our industry, in the retail industry. It's not about knowing what a product can, but it's knowing what the customer wants to do with it, and jump on this train to convince him that you have the right product for him. So sometimes customers are coming and saying, I want to buy this, and we simply just sell it to the customer. But I think the better approach would be, let me ask you some questions, dear customer, and find out what you really want, and then sell the right product to the customer. So meaning the communication or the way how we talk to customer and interact with the customer need to change. So we need to train actually our workforce not on product knowledge, because as said, this can be pushed, but we need to find out how we can get the emotion of the customer and how we can understand, and Philip mentioned one very important point for me, listen to the customer. Really listen to the customer, understand what he really wants, and not sell something to him that he thinks he might want and not what he really wants. So I think this is a big change in the way how we're going to train our people. Like I said, first of all, how we're going to recruit our people, how we're going to train them, and how we can keep them up to speed around everything that's happening in the customer journey. And I think this is a very important thing about the workforce, the way how we handle our workforce, how we work with our workforce, and how they need to understand the customers needs to change dramatically. I don't think, to be honest with you, that the industry is already at this point. We still have the opinion that a good salesperson can sell everything to a customer. But like I said, I don't think it's about selling something to the customers. It's more about what is a customer really asking for? What is he really needing at the moment when he enters a store or jump on an e-commerce platform and try to search something? This is much more important than just to sell something, especially in regards to the loyalty customer question again. So how can we get loyal customers out of the market and not only sell something and then the customer disappear again? So from my point of view, technology will help the product information and knowledge, but we need different way to train our workforce and to get them to ask the customers the right question. And I think this is a different way of training, of attracting workforce, but also of educating them to talk right with the customers. And this change needs to happen very quickly if you want to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Excellent. Thank you, Tuan. So I'd like to talk a bit now about the types of technologies retailers can use to really get to know their customers. How can customer analytics, for example, help retailers achieve a greater understanding of their customers? Philippe, how would you answer that?
Well, first, I'd like to put some perspective on that, because let's remember that customer analytics is not something that retailers have been good at, in the past. I mean, I always remember that was, 15 years ago, I had the second largest retailer meeting with one of the largest banking, company in Europe. And that was funny to hear the discussion, because the retailer was explaining that how deep they knew about their product analytics, but they were really short in terms of customer analytics. And the bank would be the other way around. Quite frankly, banks have been stronger at customer analytics for long times. And on the other hand, they are pretty weak on product analytics. However, we've gone a long way. And I think that retailers have made a lot of progress by, being able to start better segmenting the customer. But we get to a point where, as Tuan was saying, I think that's, okay, it's one thing to know, your customer behavior, but how do you know what is driving emotion? What do you know about what is driving experience, a good experience, sentiment, positive sentiment? And you realize that this is something that very few retailers are today able to answer. So I think that when we talk about customer analytics or analytics for the sake of loyalty, we have to realize that the answer we are trying to, the questions we are trying to answer are now a different level to what was maybe 5 or even 3 years ago. And this is where today the challenge for many retailers is that if they only rely on information that they've been able to capture through their kind of transactional system, very likely they will not have the answer. And I think that's when you talk about experience and when you talk about emotion or what is driving a good experience, you need to go back to the interactions. I think it starts with interactions. So this is really what retailer now needs to tap into. So we call that the interactions analytics. And when I say interactions, you need to think about that broadly, and including all your channels, whether it's voice, text, everything, all the different point of contact with your customer. And so the good thing is that technology has made a lot of improvement right now. So whether it's voice, you have a very performant, speech to text technology. You can deal with all kind of, seamlessly all kind of, interactions, all kind of channel. You can apply, pretty strong analytics on that. You can apply some very sophisticated algorithm that's going to give you exactly what is the sentiment. You can do that on the real time. And from there, you can start doing all kind of analysis on the correlation of what are the root causes for bad sentiment, what are the drivers. So this is now available to the extent that, again, you have to make that first, to dive into this. When we have retailer coming to us and trying to understand what they could get out of analytics, I would say typically first the primary question is to say, tell me what is driving my CSAT, what are the drivers, and how I can act on them. Then very likely they're going to be about, okay, one of the driver, as I said earlier, will likely be on the behavior you have and the behavior your agent have. So they're going to say, well, okay, help me understand how I can improve those behaviors. So now we are touching on another piece of from a customer service, which is quality management, and how basically you are improving the performance of your agents through targeted coaching and being able to really nail down the skills that your agent needs to grow. Some other retailer will say, okay, well, I want to really leverage analytics, especially from all those interactions, to understand how I can generate more revenue, improve my conversion rate. I think that right now we have many retailers coming to us and say, we have this concept of services to sales. How do you transform an inbound interactions into a sales opportunity? And I think that this is definitely a great opportunity for retailer. So analytics can help you understand, okay, again, what is driving a good conversion, how much of the agent behavior can influence this, and what are the trigger, the keywords you should be looking at, and so on. So that's, to me, the new arena where retailer needs to tap into. We call that the interactions analytics, but this is the new set of analytics that are explaining what is driving a good experience. And I think that this is what we're talking about today.
Great. Thank you, Philippe. Tuan, what would you say to that?
I fully agree. From a retailer's perspective, I would say that we are just at the beginning of using technologies and to analyze, or not to analyze, but to find more out about our customers. And I think this is a big, big opportunity at the moment to jump on this train and to use this data. And at the moment, most of the retailers, I think what they're doing is maybe they have an NPS question, maybe they have the CSAT question, but actually they don't understand the customers and really know their customers. Yeah, even if it's a mass industry, so we have a lot of customers, not only 1, 2, or 10, it's hundreds, thousands, millions of customers. But at the end of the day, with the technology that is available, and also everybody's talking about omni-channel, as Philip mentioned, you need to link everything together. And I think this is a big challenge for retailers to collect all this information, put it somehow in one platform, and have visibility about their customers. And I think we already mentioned it in the discussion that you need to move from being reactive to being proactive. You can only be proactive with your customers if you know them. And I think it's not very transparent at the moment, even if the technology is now available, but most of the retailers are not using this. And I think it's important to go in a way to say, okay, I really want to understand what my customer is about, what he's thinking, what he likes, what he dislikes, and all these kind of things, what he needs and what he doesn't need, to provide the right sales pitch even, and to increase, for example, as Philip mentioned, the conversion rate. I think there are so many opportunities to use technologies, to use data, to understand our customers in a better way. But based on my experience, I would say that the retail industry is only at the beginning. There are other industries which are much, much far ahead regarding that. And currently, everybody's trying to pick up there, because this is currently, in my opinion, a missed opportunity for all the retailers to use this data and to be more proactive and to boost sales and customer loyalty. And it's even simply starts with nearly none of the retailers are doing this. Welcome calls after you sold somebody something, asking the customers if he's happy with the product that he just purchased and things like that. We are not doing this, and this is a really big missed opportunity. The technology is available, and I think now it's time for all retailers to jump on this train, ensuring that they collect data, analyze the data, use the data to be more to provide a better customer experience and be more customer friendly even. And that's not working well, I think, in the industry. But I think most of the retailers understand now that there's a big change needed, and you can see how the customer journey is already changed. So for example, we are trying to collect customer data on all customer journey points to understand the customer better. But I think there's still a way to go. And most of the retailers are not focusing on this. I think there's also an opportunity to share best practices and to get experts in to help you develop this data analysis and using of data, which is also important, because in the past, this was not a core competence of retailers, analyzing the data. It was, to be honest with you, all about sales. And now it's more about understanding your customers, and then selling comes to the next. And I think this shift needs to happen very quickly now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm curious then to hear from each of you what recommendations you have for retailers that are trying to differentiate themselves from their competitors. Jitender, could you start us off on this one?
Sure. I think we've heard from Philip and Tuan both. I think it's I think most of the points are very, common, because industry is going through that shift, and the trends are very clearly indicating what is needed here. And if you put that simply, that what are these top things to be done to improve your loyalty programs, I think first is extremely important. We heard many times today was new age technologies. Now we can all, say that it's there, but today reality is we really don't know our customers. Most of the industry is struggling on that. Tuan was just talking about that. So new age technologies, understanding emotion, understanding sentiments, reducing your data silos, all those are, questions which have to be answered through technology innovation and technology deployment. And technology is available today. There's enough technology is available to know your customers and really create a customized, contextualized experience, which is absolutely driven through empathy and building trust as the biggest theme. That is one. Simplifying the redemption process. All of us are users of some kind of loyalty programs, and all of us know intrinsically that brands which have very, very effective, easy redemption processes are really liked and loved by their customers. So simplifying your redemption process is extremely important. There is enough studies and reports which are indicating that one of the biggest frustration customers have, and that number is not like single percentage, it's like 40% plus customers who have really stated that redemption programs are really frustrating, which means there is a need to relook at that and simplifying that. Third is boosting omni-channel experience, increasing focus on customer value segmentation, spearheaded by empathy, domain experts. All that is fine, but you have to really boost your omni-channel experience. Extremely important. Customers need it. Then another point which I think we touched upon many times today was creating a personalized customer experience. So that's another thing, using again technology and analytics and right training and upskilling of programs. You have to create a personalized customer experience. One of the things I touched upon in my first point when I was talking about trends and things which are happening in that industry, especially for loyalty side, was re-evaluating the value proposition. See, acquiring a customer, onboarding a customer on loyalty program is easy because you're investing in it. You're giving them upfront goodies, upfront benefits which are outweighing the cost they have to pay for subscription. But value proposition, which is experiential program, is extremely important to ensure that you are able to retain them. And last was whole discussion about upskilled workforce, which I will again say is extremely critical, especially because only 4% of the industry is investing in that. So very, very important that all of us clearly look at that point and start investing in that direction. Because as the advancement is happening in technology and analytics, your agent upskilling is extremely important. That workforce has to become a digital friendly workforce, and that is where I would say is another critical point which has to be looked at from investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jitender. Philippe, what would you say to this?
Well, I think that Jitender covered a lot of them, but I think that by now, I hope that we acknowledge and we agree on the importance of experience. I think that we have established the fact that most of loyalty program right now will be driven by experience. If we agree on that, we have to be consistent with this, meaning that okay, it starts with, let's make sure we understand what is driving a good experience. I think that was a point we have made several times on the fact that many retailers are missing the analytics today to understand what is driving a good experience from their customer. They don't know their customer enough. Obviously, the consumers have changed. They have some new behavior. We talk about that. Digitalization is here. It's going to last. It's going to increase. So you cannot avoid having a frictionless omni-channel platform today. And this is becoming an imperative. However, I think that's what I would like to also emphasize is that, and this is also in terms of how do you start. Once we have said that, okay, we need to have the analytics, we need to deliver frictionless experience. The two things that typically I would advise a customer is we know that most of our consumers are looking for self-service capabilities. That's the new way, the new generation basically, as much as they don't want to talk to people anymore. They want to be looking at the solution by themselves. So you start really, and you really need to start having some empathy and trying to understand all the different intent that your consumer may have and start brainstorming on, is the information available on my website, on my app, on my processes? What about, we talk about the redemption process. We know that it's causing a lot of negative experience. So, I think that we need to start having a reverse, approach on, okay, let's understand the different intent and make sure that the information is pushed out, or it's easy to access to, or we basically streamline our processes to improve that as much as we can. The other also tip that I would give to retailer is that as they look ahead, I think that by now they understand that AI will play a big role. We talk about analytics, but analytics is more than just looking at the past. Now it's all the ability to start predict what's going to happen, and we know that for retailer it's key. So now we are touching on the field of AI, and we know that AI is driven by those kind of algorithms. I'm not going to get into the detail, but are fed with data. So what is important right now is to start collecting the data, labeling the data, so that over time, retailer will start being able to transform this data into insight and really make a difference tomorrow. But it doesn't come overnight. And I see many retailers right now realizing that, well, we didn't store that data. So quite frankly, we don't have all the past interactions or all the past history of that. And we cannot create those very smart algorithms. So you need to start someday. So, and my advice is that, okay, well, start understanding the kind of, behavior or you would like to start predicting, and you will realize that you have the data. Just keep it, label it, and over time, very quickly, because it doesn't take too much to create some very smart predictive models, you can start making a difference. So that's maybe two things that I'd like to maybe highlight.
Excellent, Philippe. Thank you so much. Well, we have had some great questions submitted by our audience, so we're going to head into our Q&A session here. Our first one is for Philippe. What are the key challenges that the organizations will face in this changing face of loyalty?
Well, Jitendra mentioned that. I think that right now we have to realize that many retailers are still struggling with a lot of data silo. I mean, at the end of the day, we are depicting a very, advanced picture, but many retailers are still struggling with the fact that, today they invested maybe in a bot and it's fairly isolated. Their CRM is not connected well with their call center. Their agent doesn't have access to the information. So let's face it, I think that we are talking of a world that's, for some retailer, is a big challenge, because there is all this legacy, and sometimes it could be, years of creating silo that are not talking to each other. And on top of that, many of them are not on the cloud. So, let's remember that last year, where we had the start of the pandemic, it was a nightmare for some retailer. They came to us and say, well, my agents are stuck at home. How do I deal with this? And so fortunately, right now, we are able to set up, a call center on the cloud in a matter of one day. But quite frankly, you need to start anticipating that. So I think that right now you need to remove silo and streamline your processes, and it takes a long time, let's face it. You also need to start being, another key challenge right now is, as I said, many retailers are still not data-driven enough. And so how do you make that shift? How do you start aligning your business objective, in the case of loyalty, which is improving your experience, with some key relevant, first KPIs, and the data that's going to support that? So this is a shift. I mean, typically, I'm going to use an example. I mean, again, I'm focusing on customer service because this is what we know at NICE. But when you realize that many customer service from retailer are trying to improve the performance of their agents, usually leveraging their quality management program, which is based on, looking at 1% of the interactions, I don't know, like 5 interactions per agent per month, and trying to drive insight from that. And that's going to be the main, I would say, the main source for driving coaching to their agents. No mystery why we have 92% of executives today considering that the quality management is not delivering any value to their organization. So, at some point you have to realize that you have to align this. And if you say that, okay, customer experience matters, so I want my agent to understand how they impact customer experience. And the next move is to understand, okay, what is the behavior that you agent needs to have to drive this? Okay, so then let's collect the information about that, and let's make sure that we can drive efficient coaching. So be data-driven and align your organization with some relevant business objectives all across the chain, I would say. And I think that's the last piece. When I said, one of the key challenges I see from organization is that I touch on that is back to the workforce. I think that right now we have too much of the workforce that right now are not equipped with the right knowledge of being able to deliver the right experience. And this is basically touching on knowledge management. So there is so much information that some retailers have been able to capture, but guess what? It's not pushed to the field. It's not pushed to the workforce. And at the same time, basically you need to connect the dots. So that's some of the challenges that we see a lot when we have retailers trying to embark on this journey.
Great. Thank you, Philippe. Our next question for Jatinder: how critical would BPM partners' role be in redefining their clients' customer experience strategies?
Thanks. I think this is, a question where the jury is always out. Whether the BPM providers will be playing at the last leg of execution, or will they be playing at the first leg of strategy. And, if you remember the picture I was painting, 30 minutes back, that the whole journey of achieving customer experience and driving loyalty and, which is driven by trust building, starts from human-inspired design model and human-assisted experience, which is the middle, and last is the execution. Now, there are enough discussions happened on vested outsourcing and partnership model, but this is the time to do it now. Now, BPM providers have reinvented themselves time and again. Enough examples to prove that. BPM partners are absolutely active partners in shaping up their client strategies while improving scale and efficiencies. Now, the first thing which a BPM partner can bring and do for any retail brand today is creating a benchmark for client CX strategy and maturity across industry and across its peers. Because a BPM player will have access to across industry view, not just particular retail brand, but across brands and across industries. Second is helping their clients build resilience and agility, which is extremely important. And, for a BPM player, it is absolutely, something which they do day in and day out. Third piece is optimization. Now, a BPM provider can optimize your contact strategy. Now, while everybody is talking omni-channel experience, but there has to be right strategy to drive omni-channel. Right balance of digital transformation, which is all about AI bot, digital channels, and human intervention. You have to have a fine balance of mixing the two and ensuring that experience is contextualized and personalized. The other point which a BPM provider can do, and a company like WNS can really bring that to life, is superior customer experience with data and analytics and insights. Because partnering with companies like NICE and bringing a lot of things as best in class with operations excellence, you can really bring that to life when there is an interaction happening with the customer through any channel. Then the last bit is the whole. See, while this whole re-engineering is happening on the customer journey, re-engineering is happening on the way you want to, interact with your customers, there has to be re-engineering done at the commercial model also. So there is a big shift happening towards TCO model, which is total cost of ownership, and not just, agent cost or UTP cost, but the whole thing has to move towards total cost of ownership model, and that's what a BPM provider should and can bring to life when we're dealing with our partners and our retail brands. Thanks, Megan.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jatinder. Our next question is for Tuan. Do you see any geo or region-specific trends or challenges in customer loyalty for e-commerce players?
Yes, that's a very important topic, actually. And I would like to take Europe as an example. Even if we have the European Union, Europe is still super fragmented. So meaning from a cultural point of view, from a, let's say, buying power of customers, from the way how customers are thinking about owning or subscribing things, even from a legal requirements, yeah. So we have the European Union, for example, who is putting a lot of regulations in where you can say, okay, it's similar in all countries. But I think as a retailer entering e-commerce in a specific country, you need to be very, doing your homework actually, and be very conscious about those topics to ensure that you're providing the right offers to your customers. And I think it's not that easy just to say we are doing something great in Germany, for example, and let's go to France and we can do the same there and we will be successful. I think the cultural topic is a very important one. So you need to understand, again, we are discussing this actually the whole day already, going back to your customers, understanding the customers, what is motivating them to buy something, what is driving them, what kind of emotions are in there, to understand this and then to provide the right offers and also the right way how the customer can purchase something on the e-commerce platform is one key success factor that everybody needs to consider when you're thinking about geographical differences. Yeah? So it's not that easy where you can say, I just move from one country to the next and can expand as I wish. No, I think it's very important to understand each country on its own and also to provide the needed service and around it to be successful in this. So customer loyalty is very depending on how you understand the culture of your customer base.
Excellent. Thank you, Tuan. Well, we are all out of time for today, but before we sign off, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And thank you to Tuan, Jitender, and Philippe for sharing their insights. If you asked a question during the Q&A that we did not get to, or if you have any other questions, we will be happy to get back to you by email. Today's webinar will also be available on demand if you wanted to review anything that we've talked about here. Have a good rest of your day.